In the stillness of ancient days, when Egypt stood tall among nations and its pyramids pierced the skies, there lived a people not born of the Nile, yet planted by divine design. They were the children of Israel, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, brought down to Egypt in famine, multiplied in peace, and forgotten in power. Then arose a new king over Egypt, one who knew not Joseph, nor the famine, nor the salvation once brought by the Hebrew. Fear whispered into Pharaoh's ear, and suspicion poisoned his gaze. "Behold," he said to his counselors, "the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And if war breaks out, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape the land." So the strategy of oppression began. Burden was laid upon burden. Brick and mortar, fields and furnaces, the Israelites were driven like beasts beneath the whip. Cities of storehouses rose, Pithom and Ramses, on the backs of the afflicted. Yet the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied, a quiet rebellion of resilience. Then Pharaoh's heart darkened further. He called the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, and whispered death into their ears. "When you serve as midwives to the Hebrew women, if it is a son, you shall kill him, but if it is a daughter, she shall live." But the midwives feared God more than Pharaoh. They refused, and God rewarded them with households of their own. Still, Pharaoh's cruelty deepened. A decree echoed through the land: "Every son born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the Nile." The river, Egypt's lifeblood, was turned into a grave for innocence. Yet into this darkness, light was born. A Levite woman gave birth to a son, and when she saw that he was beautiful, a child of destiny, she hid him 3 months. And when she could hide him no longer, she placed him in a basket made of bulrushes, sealed with tar and pitch, and set him among the reeds of the Nile. The river that devoured so many now bore its redeemer. Pharaoh's daughter came to bathe and saw the basket among the reeds. She sent her servant, and the child was drawn out. She opened the basket, and the baby wept. Moved with compassion, she said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then the child's sister, who had watched from the shadows, stepped forward and said, "Shall I find a nurse for the child among the Hebrew women?" And so his own mother nursed him until he was grown. The daughter of Pharaoh named him Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." And Moses grew up in the courts of Egypt, a prince among slaves, learned in the ways of the Egyptians, clothed in their robes, but never one of them. In his heart stirred a fire he did not yet understand. One day he went out to his people. He saw their burdens. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brothers. The rage of justice surged. He looked this way and that, and struck the Egyptian down. He buried him in the sand. But the next day he saw 2 Hebrews fighting. "Why do you strike your companion?" he asked. And the man answered, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Fear gripped Moses. The deed was known, and when Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill him. So Moses fled. Across the desert, into the land of Midian, he became a fugitive. He sat by a well, as Jacob once had, and there met the daughters of a priest named Jethro. He helped them water their flocks, and in time married Zipporah, one of them. Moses became a shepherd, a keeper of sheep, far from the palaces of Egypt. 40 years passed. He had a son and named him Gershom, for he said, "I have been a sojourner in a foreign land." But God had not forgotten his people. Their groans rose like incense from the brickyards. God heard. God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God saw, God knew. And then, on an ordinary day, in an unremarkable place, the extraordinary broke through. Moses led his flock to the far side of the wilderness, to Horeb, the mountain of God. And there he saw it, a bush burning, yet not consumed. He turned aside, and the voice called to him from within the flame, "Moses, Moses." He answered, "Here I am." "Do not come near. Take off your sandals, for the place on which you stand is holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people in Egypt and have heard their cry. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, to bring them up to a good and broad land. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people out of Egypt. But Moses said, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out? And God replied, But I will be with you. Still Moses trembled. If I go to them and say, The God of your fathers has sent me, and they ask, What is his name? What shall I say? And God answered with words that shook eternity. I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And then again, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is my memorial to all generations. God gave him signs: a staff turned serpent, a leprous hand restored, water turned to blood. Yet Moses still hesitated. I am slow of speech and tongue, he said. But God answered, Who made man's mouth? Is it not I the Lord? Now go, and I will be with your mouth. Still Moses pleaded, Send someone else. And the Lord's anger kindled. Yet in mercy he said, Is there not Aaron your brother? He shall speak for you. I will be with both your mouths. So Moses returned to Egypt, carrying a staff, a name, and a mission. He met Aaron, and together they spoke to the elders of Israel. Aaron told them all the words the Lord had spoken, and Moses showed them the signs, and the people believed. They bowed their heads and worshipped. But Pharaoh's heart was yet untouched. The fire had only begun. And so it came to pass that Moses and Aaron stood before Pharaoh, not as diplomats nor slaves, but as messengers of the living God. They bore no chariots, wielded no swords, only a staff, a command, and the fire of divine purpose. Thus said the Lord, God of Israel, Let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. Pharaoh's eyes narrowed, his lips curled in contempt. Who is the Lord, he said, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and moreover, I will not let Israel go. But Moses and Aaron stood firm. The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness to sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or sword. Pharaoh's heart hardened. He summoned the taskmasters and increased the burden. You shall no longer give straw to the people to make bricks. Let them gather straw for themselves, but the quota shall not decrease. And the people groaned under the weight. They turned on Moses and Aaron. May the Lord judge you, they said, for you have made us stink in the sight of Pharaoh. Moses fell before the Lord. O Lord, why have you brought harm upon this people? Why did you ever send me? But God answered with promise, not explanation. I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as God Almighty, but by my name, YHWH, I did not make myself fully known. I have heard the groaning of the people, and I have remembered my covenant. I will bring them out with a mighty hand and great acts of judgment. I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God. You shall know that I am the Lord your God. But the people did not listen. Their spirits were broken by slavery. Still God spoke, Go into Pharaoh and say, Let my people go. And though Moses doubted, though he stammered, God empowered him. He made Aaron his prophet and Moses as God to Pharaoh. Thus began the confrontation of kingdoms. Aaron cast down his staff before Pharaoh, and it became a serpent. But Pharaoh summoned his magicians, and they did the same by their secret arts. Yet Aaron's serpent swallowed theirs. Still Pharaoh's heart would not yield. Then the Lord said to Moses, Go to Pharaoh in the morning, as he goes down to the Nile, and say to him, By this you shall know that I am the Lord. Behold, with the staff in my hand I will strike the water of the Nile, and it shall turn to blood. And so it was. The Nile, the lifeline of Egypt, ran crimson, fish died, the rivers stank, the people could not drink, yet Pharaoh's heart remained hard. 7 days passed. Then came frogs. They burst forth from river and pond, invading houses, ovens, and kneading bowls. Pharaoh pleaded, plead with the Lord to take away the frogs." And Moses prayed, and the frogs died, yet Pharaoh hardened his heart again. Then dust turned to gnats. Tiny terrors swarmed man and beast. The magicians tried to replicate it, but could not. They said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." Still Pharaoh would not listen. Then came flies, swarms thick and choking, filling homes and marketplaces, except in Goshen, where Israel dwelt. There no fly stirred. A division was made between Egypt and God's people. Pharaoh relented briefly. "Sacrifice to your God," he said, "but do not go far." Yet when the flies vanished, he hardened his heart once more. Then came pestilence. The hand of the Lord struck the livestock of Egypt, horses, donkeys, camels, herds, flocks. They died by the thousands, but not a single beast among the Israelites perished. Pharaoh saw, and still he resisted. Then came boils. Moses took soot from a kiln and threw it into the air. Ash settled across the land and broke out in painful sores on every Egyptian, man and beast. Even the magicians could not stand before Moses. Yet Pharaoh remained unbent. Then the Lord said, "Let my people go, that they may serve me. For this time I will send all my plagues upon your heart." And Moses lifted his staff toward heaven. Thunder roared, hail fell from the sky, mingled with fire. It shattered trees, stripped fields, destroyed barley and flax, and killed men and animals caught in the open. Only in Goshen did peace reign. Pharaoh called out, "This time I have sinned. The Lord is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. Plead with the Lord." Moses prayed, the hail ceased. But Pharaoh's heart remained iron. Egypt, mighty Egypt, stood trembling, its gods shamed, its land wasted, its pride bleeding. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh. I have hardened his heart, that I may show these signs among them, and that you may tell your children and grandchildren how I dealt with Egypt, that they may know that I am the Lord." And the Lord said to Moses, "Go in to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his servants, that I may perform these signs of mine among them, that you may tell your children how I dealt harshly with Egypt and showed them my power." So Moses and Aaron came before Pharaoh again. "Thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse, tomorrow I will bring locusts upon your land." Pharaoh's servants begged him, "How long shall this man be a snare to us? Let the people go." But Pharaoh, proud to the end, said, "Only the men may go." Moses refused compromise. And the next day the wind rose from the east. A dark cloud appeared on the horizon. The locusts came, not by thousands, but by countless millions, consuming every green thing that remained. Trees were stripped bare. Fields vanished in a hum of wings. Pharaoh called again, "I have sinned. Forgive me, plead with your God." And Moses prayed. The Lord turned the wind westward, and the locusts were swept into the sea. But once more, Pharaoh's heart would not yield. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, a darkness to be felt." And darkness came. Thick, suffocating, unbroken, for 3 days no light pierced the gloom. The sun itself was veiled, none moved, none spoke, yet in the land of Goshen there was light. Pharaoh summoned Moses, "Go serve the Lord, only let your flocks and herds remain." But Moses replied, "Not a hoof shall be left behind." Pharaoh, enraged, shouted, "Get away from me! Take care never to see my face again, for on the day you see my face, you shall die." And Moses answered, "As you say, I will not see your face again." But before he left, Moses gave one final word, a message from the Lord. "Thus says the Lord, about midnight I will go out in the midst of Egypt, and every firstborn in the land shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sits on the throne, to the firstborn of the slave girl, and all the firstborn of the cattle. There shall be a great cry in all the land of Egypt, such as there never has been, nor ever will be again, but not a dog shall growl against the people of Israel." Then Moses went out from Pharaoh in hot anger. And the Lord spoke again, One more plague I will bring upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterward, he will let you go, and when he lets you go, he will drive you out completely." So the Lord instructed Moses, "Speak to the congregation of Israel, saying, On the 10th day of this month, each household shall take a lamb, a male without blemish. You shall keep it until the 14th day. Then at twilight, the whole assembly shall slaughter their lambs. Take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of each house. And that night roast the lamb with fire, eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Eat it in haste, with your belts fastened, your sandals on your feet, your staffs in hand, for it is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night. I will strike down every firstborn in the land, both man and beast, and on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. But the blood shall be a sign for you. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall fall upon you to destroy you." And so it was. At midnight, the angel of the Lord passed through Egypt. In every house where there was no blood on the doorposts, death came. The firstborn of Pharaoh fell. The firstborn of the prisoner fell. The firstborn of cattle, of camel, of ox, all fell. And the cry that rose in Egypt pierced heaven. No house was untouched, no family unbroken. But where the blood was seen, there was silence, protection, mercy, a covering of covenant. Then Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron by night. His voice was hollow, crushed, defeated. "Rise," he said, "go out from among my people, both you and the people of Israel. Go serve the Lord as you have said. Take your flocks and your herds and be gone, and bless me also." The people of Egypt urged them to leave quickly, for they said, "We are all dead men." And the Israelites took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading bowls bound in cloth on their shoulders. They asked the Egyptians for silver and gold and garments, and the Lord gave them favor. Egypt was plundered without sword. And thus they left, about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children. A mixed multitude went with them, with flocks and herds in great number. They baked unleavened cakes of the dough they had brought from Egypt, for it had not risen. They were driven out with haste, no time for leaven, no time to tarry. 430 years to the day since Jacob entered Egypt, the children of Israel departed. It was a night of watching by the Lord, and a night of remembrance for all generations to come. This is the Lord's Passover. This is the beginning of freedom. Pharaoh had fallen, Egypt was broken, its God silenced, its power shattered beneath the weight of judgment. At last the people of Israel walked out, not as slaves but as the redeemed, and the Lord went before them, not just as a silent guardian but as flame and cloud. A pillar of fire lit their nights, a pillar of cloud shaded their days. God led them not by the quickest route, but by the wilderness path, lest fear overtake their hearts too soon. They carried the bones of Joseph, who had prophesied this very moment, his faith now fulfilled in the freedom of a nation. But Pharaoh's pride was not yet done. He looked upon his empty city, his lost labor force, his grief, and he hardened his heart one last time. Chariots were summoned, horses prepared. 600 of Egypt's finest thundered into the desert, chasing Israel with death in their eyes. At the Red Sea, the Israelites turned and saw the dust rising, the war machines of Egypt approaching. They cried out in panic, "Did you bring us here to die because there were no grave in Egypt?" Moses lifted his voice, "Fear not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." He raised his staff, the wind of God split the sea, waters rose in walls, the seabed turned to dry ground. Israel walked through, not in haste, but in awe. Pharaoh's army followed, but the cloud descended. Darkness swallowed their path. The Lord threw their chariots into confusion. Wheels jammed, horses bucked. Then the sea returned. With one breath, God drowned the might of Egypt. Not a single soldier remained. And on the far shore, the people stood in stunned silence. Then they sang. Moses led the song. "The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. Pharaoh's chariots and his host he cast into the sea. Who is like you, O Lord, majestic in holiness, awesome in glory, working wonders. Miriam, the prophetess, took a tambourine. The women followed in dance and praise. For the first time in generations, Israel was not afraid, they were free. But freedom was a road, not a destination. 3 days into the desert, thirst came. They reached Marah, but the water was bitter. The people grumbled. Moses cried out, and the Lord showed him a tree. He threw it into the water, and it became sweet. At Elim there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees. Rest, shade, provision, but the journey pressed on. Into the wilderness of sin, hunger struck. The people murmured again, "In Egypt we had meat and bread, here we'll die of hunger." And God answered, not with rebuke, but with bread. At dawn the dew lifted, and the ground was covered in fine flakes. "What is it?" they asked. "Manna, heaven's food." In the evening quail came in flocks, flesh and bread, enough for the day, none to be hoarded, none to be wasted. And on the 6th day a double portion, because the 7th was holy. Sabbath was born, rest commanded, not as a burden but as a gift. Still they journeyed, still they complained. At Rephidim there was no water. Again the cry rose, "Why did you bring us out to die?" Moses struck the rock at Horeb, as God commanded, and water gushed forth, cool and abundant. But not all enemies came with chariots. Amalek attacked, the first to strike Israel on the journey, a cowardly ambush at the rear. Joshua led the defense. Moses stood on the hill, staff raised. As long as his hands were lifted, Israel prevailed, but his arms grew weary. Aaron and Hur stood beside him, holding them up until sunset, and Israel won. God said, "Write this in a book, Amalek will be blotted out." Then came Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law. He brought Zipporah, Moses' wife, and their 2 sons. They embraced. And when Jethro heard all that the Lord had done in Egypt, he rejoiced. "Now I know," he said, "that the Lord is greater than all gods." He watched Moses judge the people all day, from morning to night. "This thing you do is not good," Jethro said. "You cannot carry this burden alone." He counseled Moses to appoint capable men, leaders of thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s, men of truth who hated bribes. Moses listened, wisdom spread. And then they came to the mountain. 3 months after they left Egypt, they arrived at Sinai. Thunder rolled on its peaks, lightning split the skies, a dense cloud descended, and the trumpet of heaven began to sound. The Lord called to Moses, and Moses went up. He spoke, "You have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I bore you on eagle's wings. If you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples, a kingdom of priests, a holy nation." Moses came down and spoke to the elders, and the people answered with one voice, "All that the Lord has spoken, we will do." But they did not yet know what they were promising. The mountain shook, the glory of God descended. The people were told to wash themselves, prepare, keep back. Even a touch on the mountain meant death. And so on the 3rd day, as dawn broke, the mountain blazed with fire. The smoke billowed like a furnace. The earth quaked, and the voice of God spoke in thunder. The mountain groaned, thunder crashed, fire danced on stone. The trumpet of heaven grew louder, long and fierce. The people stood at the foot of Sinai, trembling, not with awe alone, but with dread. No veil separated God's voice from human ears. Creation itself seemed to bend beneath the weight of divine presence. Then the Lord spoke, not through Moses, not in a whisper, but directly and aloud. "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. You shall not covet." 10 words, etched not only in stone, but in fire, in fear, in covenant. The people recoiled. They begged Moses, "Do not let God speak to us again, or we will die. You speak to us, and we will listen." And Moses said, "Do not be afraid. God has come to test you, that the fear of him may be before you, so that you may not sin." Then Moses entered the thick darkness where God was. There the Lord gave more than just commandments. He gave laws of justice, mercy, worship, and rest, laws for slaves and strangers, for fields and feasts, laws that revealed his holiness and his heart. And when Moses returned, he told the people all the words of the Lord. They answered with one voice, "All the words that the Lord has spoken we will do." So Moses wrote down the covenant. Early the next morning, he built an altar at the foot of the mountain, 12 pillars, one for each tribe. Young men offered sacrifices. Moses took half the blood and threw it on the altar. The other half he placed in basins. He read the book of the covenant aloud. And again the people declared, "All that the Lord has spoken we will do, we will be obedient." Then Moses took the blood and threw it on the people. "Behold," he said, "the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you." And then glory descended. Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and 70 elders of Israel went up the mountain, and they saw the God of Israel. Beneath his feet was a pavement of sapphire, clear as the sky. They saw, and they ate, and they drank. Then God called Moses alone to come higher still. "Come up to me on the mountain," he said, "and I will give you the tablets of stone with the law and the commandments, which I have written for their instruction." Moses went. The cloud covered the mountain 6 days. On the 7th day, God called him into the fire. There he remained 40 days and 40 nights. There the blueprint of worship was revealed, dimensions of the tabernacle, details of the priesthood, the Ark of the Covenant, the mercy seat, the golden lampstand, the altar of incense. But below, in the valley, impatience grew. The people said to Aaron, "Make us gods to go before us. As for this Moses, we don't know what's become of him." And Aaron, weak and afraid, gathered gold, cast it in fire, and made a calf, a molten lye. He said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." They rose early, offered sacrifices, sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. On the mountain the Lord saw. "Go down," he said to Moses, "your people have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly. Leave me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them. I will make a great nation from you." But Moses pleaded, "Why should your anger burn against your people, whom you brought out of Egypt? Why let Egypt say, 'He brought them out to kill them'? Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Remember your covenant." And the Lord relented. Then Moses descended. He carried in his hands the tablets of stone, written with the finger of God. When he saw the calf and the dancing, rage consumed him. He shattered the tablets at the foot of the mountain. He burned the calf, ground it to powder, scattered it on the water, and made the people drink. He turned to Aaron, "What did this people do to you, that you led them into such great sin?" Aaron stammered, "They gave me gold. I threw it in the fire, and out came this calf." Moses stood at the gate of the camp. "Who is on the Lord's side?" he cried. And the sons of Levi gathered to him. "Go through the camp," he said. "Each of you kill his brother, his companion, his neighbor." 3,000 fell that day. The next day Moses returned to the Lord. "Alas," he said, "this people has sinned a great sin, but now if you will forgive them, blot me out of your book." But the Lord said, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out. Go, lead the people, my angel shall go before you." And the Lord struck the people with a plague for the calf. Then Moses pitched a tent outside the camp. He called it the tent of meeting. There he spoke to God as a man speaks with his friend. But Moses was not finished. "If your presence does not go with us," he said, "do not bring us up from here. How will it be known that we are your people unless you go with us?" And God answered, "My presence will go with you. I will give you rest." Then Moses made one final request, "Show me your glory." And the Lord said, "I will make all my goodness pass before you and will proclaim my name. But no man shall see my face and live. I will place you in the cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by." So it was. The Lord descended in a cloud and stood with Moses, and he proclaimed his name. The Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty. Moses fell to the ground and worshipped. God gave new tablets, the covenant was renewed, the people were warned again: no idols, no false worship, no compromise, keep the feasts, rest on the Sabbath, bring offerings to the sanctuary. And when Moses came down the mountain, his face shone. He did not know it, but the glory of the Lord had marked him. The people were afraid to come near, so Moses veiled his face, except when he spoke with the Lord. The covenant was restored. The law was alive. And Israel, though scarred, was still chosen. The covenant was restored. The commandments had returned, etched again in stone, blazing with grace and judgment. Now it was time to build the meeting place, the tabernacle, the sanctuary, the tent where heaven and earth would touch. And Moses spoke to the people, "This is the thing that the Lord has commanded. Take from among you an offering to the Lord. Let everyone whose heart is stirred bring gold, silver and bronze, blue, purple and scarlet yarns, fine linen and goat's hair, rams, skins and acacia wood, oil for the lamp, spices for the anointing oil, and precious stones for the breastpiece and ephod." And they came, men and women alike, those whose hearts were willing. They brought brooches and earrings, signet rings and bracelets, onyx stones and dyed threads, spinning wool and woven linen. So much was brought that Moses had to command them to stop. The people had given more than enough. God had appointed 2 men, Bezalel, filled with the Spirit of God, skilled in every craft, wise and understanding in all artistic work, and Oholiab, a master engraver and embroiderer. Together they led the craftsmen, every artisan whose heart the Lord had stirred. They began the work. The curtains were woven, 10 in total, of fine linen embroidered with cherubim in blue, purple, and scarlet. Loops of blue yarn connected them. 50 gold clasps joined them into one unified whole. The frames were made of acacia wood, overlaid with gold, standing upright in silver bases. The veil was hung to divide the holy place from the most holy place. Behind the veil stood the ark. The Ark of the Covenant, made of acacia wood, overlaid inside and out with pure gold, was the centerpiece. On top of it sat the mercy seat, with 2 cherubim of hammered gold, their wings overshadowing the throne of divine mercy. The table for the bread of the presence was crafted with precision. The golden lampstand stood with 6 branches, each decorated with almond blossoms, cups, and knobs, pure gold, beaten from one piece. 7 lamps were set upon it to give light. The altar of incense was placed before the veil. The fragrant mixture, holy and sacred, was burned morning and evening. The anointing oil, made with exact measurements, was used to consecrate everything. Outside the tent, the altar of burnt offering was made of bronze, its horns at the corners, its utensils crafted with care. The bronze basin for washing stood between the altar and the tent, filled with water for the priests to cleanse their hands and feet. The courtyard was enclosed with linen curtains hung on silver hooks, supported by bronze bases. The entrance faced east, made with needlework of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. Every part was made exactly as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then came the garments for the priests. For Aaron, the high priest, was made a robe of blue with pomegranates and golden bells at the hem, so that the sound of his movement would be heard when he ministered. The ephod was crafted of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, with onyx stones set in gold, each engraved with the names of Israel's tribes. The breastplate was square and doubled, with 12 stones in 4 rows: ruby, topaz, emerald, turquoise, sapphire, diamond, jacinth, agate, amethyst, beryl, onyx, and jasper, each one for a tribe, each name engraved by the engraver's art. The turban was white, and on it a golden plate inscribed, "Holy to the Lord." At last, the work was finished. The tabernacle, the dwelling place of God, was complete. Moses inspected every detail. He saw all that had been done, and behold, it was just as the Lord had commanded, and Moses blessed them. Then the Lord spoke, "On the first day of the first month, you shall erect the tabernacle, the tent of meeting." And so it was. Moses set up the tabernacle. He laid its bases. He set up its frames. He inserted its bars and raised its pillars. The tent was spread. The coverings were laid. The ark was brought in, the veil hung, the bread arranged, the lamps lit, the incense burned, the oil poured, the altar consecrated, the basin filled. Then Moses brought Aaron and his sons. He washed them with water. He clothed them with the holy garments. He anointed them with the sacred oil. They stood as priests, not just of sacrifice, but of mediation, standing between a holy God and a sinful people. Then Moses finished the work, and the cloud descended. The glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. The fire of God's presence settled upon it by day as a cloud, and by night as a pillar of flame. The priests could not even enter, for the glory was too dense, too thick, too holy. From that day forward, the people moved only when the cloud lifted. When the cloud rose, they journeyed. When it settled, they made camp. It was not just fire and smoke, it was presence. A God who had revealed his name. A God who had judged and delivered. A God who had spoken and forgiven. A God who had chosen to dwell among them. Not just in thunder, not only in fire, but in a tent, among his people. The Exodus was complete, but the journey had only just begun.